this is part 2 of my last theory video, and we're going to just continue where we left off from last time. So for now, we have learned how to name notes on a clef. If I were to do a treble clef or a bass clef, you know all the tricks, and you know how to name all the notes on the keyboard. Great. So now we're going to learn about just different rhythms, and then this will be really quick. I'm going to do it over here on the side, and then we're going to do scales. Hopefully we can do it all in the same video. So whenever you see notes, there are a few different kinds, and the most basic one that you see is like this, and this is called a quarter note, which will make sense in a bit. Oh, sorry with the rocky camera. I'm trying at a different camera angle, and the way I have my phone, actually filming on my phone, and I've stacked it up on a very rickety thing. Anyhow, okay, quarter note is, so each of these notes gets one beat in the most basic time signatures. It's called a quarter note because it is half of a half note. A half note gets, I guess it's right here, one beat. Half note gets 2 beats. And you can see they're almost identical, except for the quarter note is filled in and the half note is empty. Next, this is a whole note. And if you're good at math, you would have figured out that's worth 4 beats. Going on, we have a dotted half note, which is a half note with a dot. And this is essentially, when you add a dot, you're adding half of whatever the note is before it. So half of a half note is a quarter note, so that is 3 beats. So for example, like a dotted whole note, which is rare, you don't see all the time, would be a whole note plus half of whatever that is, which is a half note, so it's 6 beats. It's not very terribly common, but I'll show you. Okay, let's get into some smaller ones. So these are all things that are longer than a beat. Now, here I have a note that's filled in, and I've added a little tail to it. It's called an 8th note, and it is worth a half beat. When I have 2 8th notes together, that's 2 8th notes. But they're beamed together, they're stuck together like that. And those combined equal 1 beat. I do with my younger kids, where if we're clapping rhythms, we call the quarter note a pair. So we go pair, 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 pair. And then the 8th notes are apple, apple, pear, pear. Apple, apple, because there's 2 syllables, so they each fill 1 beat. And the half note would be pumpkin, pumpkin. Continuing on, hopefully this will work. 2 8th notes are equal 1 quarter note. Okay, and then so if we use the dotted theory again, we have a dotted quarter note. Means it's a quarter note plus half of its value, which is an 8th note. So it's really kind of like 1.5 beats. Okay, let's use this in a time signature. So the most common time, which we call it common time, so 4/4, or C, which stands for common time, means that we have 4 beats of quarter notes. So in this time, per bar, and bars are just, we just divide it with a line. So we have 4 beats. 1, oh, that noise is really annoying. Sorry. 2, 3, 4. And then a line, and then the next part could be a whole note. 1, 2, 3, 4. Or 2 half notes. 1, 2. Or could have 2 eighth notes and a dotted half note. This is bad, but just so you get the idea. And then at the end of a song, I put a double bar like this. One thick line and one thin line means, oh, you can't even see what I'm doing. Yep, I don't think you can even see that far on my paper. See? Double line. Okay. I'll try not to do any more of those. Actually, I'm going to shift this over. Yeah, that stops the annoying sound too. Excellent. Okay, so that was 4/4 times. So we can also have 3/4, which is kind of like a waltz. So that means there's 3 beats of quarter notes. So I can have the most basic, if I were to show every single beat. 1, 2, 3. And then maybe a dotted half note. And let's put a dotted quarter note, an eighth note, and another quarter note, and a half note, and 2 eighth notes. Double bar means the end. Continuing on, different time signatures. So I'm not going to do any more of all that. I'll just do a couple more here. I'll show you what exists. There's 2/4. So these are all the ones where like the quarter note is the main beat. 2/4. You could have 5/4, which like Mission Impossible. Bum 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 bum. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. Or well, I could sing Mars by Holst, but I don't know how popular that is. You can look that up. The planets, Mars. You'll probably recognize it. 6/4 is pretty common, and so on and so on. Maybe not as common, but when it comes to songs and things like that, usually these are very common. Then we have things that where the eighth note is our beat. And I know that's kind of weird. I just said like quarter note is a beat, but I'm going to change how you think about everything. And I'm going to start with 6/8, where there's 6 eighth notes in a bar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And here, it's common in marches and things like that because it sounds like da 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 da. That goes by pretty fast. So you still feel a beat. Maybe the beat is actually, you feel it like a dotted quarter note. So there's 6/8, and then there's 12/8, 9/8. These ones are common because they divide into 3. You have groups of 3, but then there's also like 4/8 and 2/8 where it divides into 2. 4/8 is basically the same as 2/4. When you think about it. Seems obvious, right? Yeah. Okay. So that was time signatures. And sorry. Yeah, most pop music is in one of these simpler ones. Then we get sort of weird ones. I'm trying to think of popular things that you might recognize. Well, a lot of stuff is in 6/8. Whenever the small beat is divided into 3 instead of into 2, it's like compound. So 6/8 or 12/8 or 9/8. 4/8 and 2/8 you see sometimes as like marches and things like that. Sometimes things are mixed meter and they change around, but maybe we'll talk more about that later. Okay, let's figure out what a scale is. So Now, if you remember in the last video, I had mentioned that C major is all the white keys on the piano. And that's why I started with C. So I'm going to just draw a C major scale in the treble clef, starting from middle C. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And this would sound like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Yeah, there's a reason why it sounds like that and not like something different. And we have to look at the keyboard and back and forth. I don't know if I can get both of these in the frame at the same time. No, I can't. Oh, but I do have another one from last time. Yeah, okay, great. Okay, so we do this by looking to see which notes have black keys between them. If they have a black key between them, we call that a whole tone. I'll just put a W for that, whole step. So, C to D is a whole step because there's a black key between them. D to E is another whole step. E to F, oh, nope. Let's call that a half step. H. F to G is whole. G to A is whole. And A to B is a whole step. And then B to C is a half step. So this is the pattern of a major scale. Whole, whole, half. Whole, 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 half. It's two whole, whole halves joined together by a whole. Okay, so let's make another scale. We have this pattern, we're going to use it for everything else now. Another one in the treble clef. I want to build a scale starting on G. G. First I'm just going to draw them out. A, B, C, D, E, G. Now we have to look. G to A. Yep, that's a whole. A to B. Yep. B to C. Half. Great. We're good so far with the pattern. See, whole, whole, half. Whole, whole, half. We're going to use this as our guide because it's right. Okay. C to D. Yep. D to E. Yep. E to F. That's a half step. Now, do we need a half step yet? Let's see. We have the pattern is whole, whole, half. Whole, 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 half. And the half is at the end. What do we have? Whole, whole, half. Whole, whole, half. Whole. So that's not right. We have to do something here. We have to do something to this note to make the pattern the same. Now, what we didn't talk about is these little symbols. This one here is called a flat. And what it does is it takes whatever note you're on. I could say a B, and I want a B flat. A B flat moves it down the keyboard to the next closest black key. We're going to start using those. So, and then a sharp, which is here, it's a number sign, moves a note up to the next nearest black note. So, if you look at this here, for the G major scale, we need a whole step between E and the next note. So we have to raise the F to an F sharp, because then look, it's a whole step because it's skipping a note between E and F sharp. So I'm going to stick a sharp sign in there. And then look, F sharp to G. They're right beside each other, so that's a half step. So G major has one sharp. It is F sharp. Okay, next. I to make, what scale? Let's do one with a flat. So I'm going to do F major. G, A, B, C, D, E, F. Oh, you're kind of in a shadow. Ow. There, that's a little bit better. Okay, F to G. Check, that's a whole step. So one whole step, G to A is the whole step. Now we need a half step, A and B. That is not a half step. Look at, there's something here. So to go to A to the next half step is this black key, which we would get by lowering the B to a B flat. So now we have a B flat, which is this note. And that's a half step. Great. B flat. Now we need a whole step. It goes to C. Great. C to D is the whole step. Great. D to E. Yep. And then E to F. It's a half step. Ta-da! We figured out that F major has one flat. It is B flat. And that is how we figure out the key signature of different scales. So you can try this with starting on any note. I'm going to do a really, really tricky one, okay? Treble clef. I'm going to do B major. So I'm going to start down here so we have somewhere to go from. B, C, D, E, F, A, B. Now bear with me because this is tricky. Okay, let's go up here. It's a little bit cleaner on my keyboard. B to C. Already, we need to do something to C. We need to make it a sharp. To make it a whole step. Great. Now we need another whole step. That brings us to the next black note, which is D sharp. Then we need a half step here. D sharp to E. Oh, good. We can keep the E the way it is. It's already a half step. Now we need a whole step. We have to bump up the F to an F sharp. Good. Now we need another whole step. We have to go to the next black key, which is a G sharp. And we need another whole step here. G sharp. We have to go to the next one, just A sharp. And then A sharp to B is a half step. Whew, so that one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sharps. B major has 5 sharps. They are C sharp, D sharp, F sharp, G sharp, and A sharp. In the next lesson, I think that's all we're going to do today. We're going to learn about the pattern of what scales have what sharps and why. And yeah, so stay tuned and goodbye.